Step 5, how do you make the same money this year as you did last year? How do you understand your gap? We worked through several budget scenarios with several clients, and I'm going to give you the template we used to do that. The math says that you need a 15 to 20% increase over the next 16 to 20 weeks to close your profit gap. That's making a few assumptions. It's making the assumption around how you managed your expenses during the downtime. It makes some assumptions around the income you had for emergencies during the downtime. It also makes some assumptions around your overall profitability. And I just picked a practice out of random. We did this for a few of our practices. I just dropped one in here. The sample you'll see, anonymized, obviously. This was a $1.3 million practice that was able to do a substantial amount of work with emergencies and prop up their down months a little bit. So you can see the example, and I'll send you the link to that shortly. But all this is around the 5 A's in the money funnel. We're going to give you our virtual smile assessment. And I know there's a question in here about Old Surfer read patient rants on various Facebook about being charged for phone calls in reference to telemedicine. Docs need to be careful with this new ADA code and alienating patients. Yeah, I don't, Old Surfer, yeah, I've read some of that same stuff too. I don't think a bad implementation of a strategy means it's a bad strategy. What I think you saw on there was a couple doctors that had a poor implementation strategy for new technology, for this teledentistry model. And I completely agree. We need to be cognizant around this new ADA code. We need to be cognizant around alienating patients. But I think they executed on a strategy they hadn't thought through, and they paid the price in terms of patient reviews for that. Let's learn from that mistake and not do it the same way they did it. This remote diagnosis allows patients to meet you where they're comfortable. It also can accelerate your sales cycle. Instead of having to go through a click on your website and schedule an appointment and come in and meet you, and there's a free consultation or a $49 consultation or whatever you offer, they can go right from your website to scheduling and meeting you. And that has a lot of value. And realize the purpose of virtual consults is not to clinically diagnose them. That's not the purpose. You're not going to have x-rays. You're not going to have the type of information to be able to say with certainty what the solution is. But 99.9% of the patients that walk into your practice, you can help. And that's what these patients want to know. Are you a nice guy? Do I like you? Do I think I want you to be my dentist? And yeah, I think you can help me, right? That's what the purpose of this teledentistry stuff is, in my view. It's not to give clinical diagnosis. It's not, you can give general treatment options. My suggestion is to not get into price too much and give general options and say, look, we'd love to have you come into the practice. We can get you scheduled in here. We're only taking one patient in at a time right now. We're sterilizing everything in between patients. And it's a time that you can reiterate the patient security and safety strategy, which leads me to step 7. Trent talked about this a lot. We're going to be rolling out a whole new iteration of this next week. Lots of new technology, lots of new marketable attributes that you can talk about. Here's the letter in its current form. I'm going to give it to you tonight here in a little bit. Step 8, the hidden hygiene tax. We just released this report last week. If you were on here last week, you got a link to this. We're going to cover what is this pre-appointment thing and what is a pre-appointment really worth? How much of my pre-appointments are what we call phantom demand? How do pre-appointments and these scheduling strategies, what effect do they have on my money funnel, your money funnel in your practice? How can I evaluate my practice in 60 seconds and know if I have a problem? In this report, which you're going to get here in just a few minutes, no strings attached, there's 4 questions. And you can answer, if you take these 4 questions to your front office team member, they can answer them. 4 quick questions. And then 2 must-haves. If your 4 questions signal that you've got a problem, what are the 2 must-have things that you probably need to do to go fix this thing? And we're going to spell it all out. We've laid out the data. We've laid out the average cost of the practices that we analyzed was between $17,000 and $34,000 a month. These were practices that ranged from $850,000 up to about $2.5 million per location. So there was a range of these, and there was also a very significant range of the additional incremental collections that came in once they were able to better schedule and solve some of these money funnel issues. This is new for this week, step 9. I'm getting a lot of questions around, should I increase or decrease my fees? And I put this calculator together to help you guys figure this thing out. By and large, should I decrease my fees? The short answer is no. And here's why. If you have a 40% profit margin, which means you have 60% overhead, if you have a 40% profit margin and you decide that you're going to lower your fees by 10% because, I don't know, you think they're too high, you think you need to be more competitive, you think times are tough coming out of this COVID-19 thing, whatever the case is, if you have a 40% profit margin and you lower your fees by 10%, that means you need to increase your collections by 25% to make the exact same profit, right? 40%, if your profit margin's 40% and you lower your fees 10%, you need to do 25% more work to make the same amount of money, which is why I said the short answer to should I lower my fees is usually no. No, you shouldn't. Now, on the other hand, let's say you have that same 40% margin, 40% profit margin after associates, after labor, before, all this is before owner compensation. Anytime you hear me talk about profit, it's before owner compensation, right? I don't care if you're an S Corp or an LLC or a C Corp. I'm talking profit margin before all owner comp, whether you're on a W-2 or a 1099 or member draws or whatever your corporate situation is. If you have a 40% profit margin before owner comp and you increase your fees by 10%. So we're going to do the opposites. 40% profit margin and you increase your fee by 10%, you can now afford to lose 20% of your patients and you still make the exact same money. If you increase your fees by 10%, you can do 20% less work and make the same profit. So usually the question of should I increase my fees, the answer is yes. Yes, you should. And you can run fee schedules and you can see which things do I want to increase, and there's a strategy around what percentile you want to be in. I'm not going to get into that tonight because that's very, very tactical. By and large, do I want to decrease my fees? No. Do I want to increase my fees? Yes. And this is why, because if you decrease your top line, it's very difficult to still make the same amount of money unless you're going to start working 7 days a week. By increasing your fees, you start to pick up all that top line, which is going to go straight to your bottom line. So you can lose 20% of your patients and make the same profit, or if you increase your fees 10% and you only lose 10% of your patients, which is a very likely scenario, you're going to make more money doing less work. And if you hear me talking about, hey, everything we do, we need to make more money and do less work, that's where this is coming from. If we can raise our fees 10%, that is going to allow you higher profitability, which is going to allow you to compensate your people better, have more stability, put more into your retirement account, and it's a complete win-win around the entire 4 quadrants that we're looking at. Patients, the people that work for you, your practice, and the person that signs the paycheck, which is you, the 4 Ps, right? I want to talk about right now step 10 in this process. If you are a current client right now, this is the Kickstart program that we're rolling out for you. I want to talk about it. There's people on here tonight that are not current clients. The next slide is going to be applicable immediately to you. Coming out of this crisis, here's the bind that you're going to be in. If you shut everything down, the data from the 2008 recession shows that 38% lower collections for 3 to 6 months longer than the ones that were prepared. I sent that email out last week and asked those 10 questions that you really need to do some thinking about. And I'm going to be doing thinking about those and continuing to develop strategies for those 10 things. Now, the launch packet, the Success Academy, all this stuff that we're rolling out right now is available to all of our current clients. Success Academy, Dental Intel, getting your team enrolled and leveled up. We also have 2 new things that we're rolling out for our clients right now. The 2 things that are going to be immediately applicable when you reopen your practice is an A-player hiring system. I know some of you, I see some names in here tonight of some of our clients that already have a great hiring system in their practice. I see a few names, and I know I've had some conversations with a couple of you that this has been somewhere that's a big area of opportunity to improve on. So we're rolling out an A-player hiring system. This is based around both the top grading system. It's also based around a number of other very sophisticated hiring systems that we've used and taught our clients at SmartBox. If you want to get a head start on the A-player hiring system, go to Amazon and buy the book Who, W-H-O, Who, not the World Health Organization, the book Who. It's a phenomenal book around hiring A-players. The second thing that we're going to be rolling out that's going to be immediately applicable to a lot of our clients is 6 steps to insurance independence. Unemployment's going up, and that means dental insurance is going down. Less patients with insurance. How can we navigate this new environment to make sure that we're not reliant upon the insurance companies and we're taking our future into our own hands? And these are 2 comprehensive strategy guides that I'm working on right now, and I'm expecting the insurance independence guide to possibly be available as soon as April this month, and the A-player hiring system probably into May. Both of them are in a draft form right now, and I'm doing a lot of work on those this week and subsequent weeks. And we're going to get those out within the next couple months, likely before you reopen. So that'll be 2 really, really great products to help you guys with those 2 big needs. There's going to be an abundance of A players available. And you've got to bring back your A players, and you've got to bring them back in a profitable way. If your labor, generally, our rule of thumb is this. Your labor as a percentage of collections should be around 25%. We have practices that are in 17 to 19% range that are super, super lean. We also have practices that are in that 30% range, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it depends on your type of practice. I also have seen practices that have labor as a percentage of collections up in the 40s, and it's crippling for a practice to have labor that high. It means you can't reinvest in yourself. It means you're not compensating yourself. You're not able to retain your A players because you can't comp them enough. So take this, if that's you, I'm happy to have a private conversation and talk through it a little bit more. But if you feel like maybe you had too many people on before, look at the percentage. If that percentage is in the mid-high 30s and 40s, that's maybe something you want to consider really looking at. And how do you bring back your A players and comp them in a way that's really going to retain them? And then how do you go find A players? Maybe you had some issues with your team and you want to go hire new people and you want to take this as an opportunity to reset. I think that's a great idea. And what better time to do it than right now? So these are 2 things we're going to be rolling out, and we're giving them away. I mean, this isn't a product to buy. We're going to be distributing these here at this Wednesday webinar. as soon as they're available. And like I said, it's not going to be next week, but likely this month on the hiring system. Oh, sorry, likely this month on insurance independence, likely next month on the hiring system. Moving on, if you are not a client, if you're a future client, we're offering a very similar program to help you through this time. And if you want to learn all about what we're doing for future clients, I'm not going to talk about it tonight. We're having a special webinar tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern. Many of you are already registered for this. If you want to go see this, this is not going to be a sales pitch. It's Ashley Best, who's worked for me for over 5 years now, is going to be delivering a complete practice growth roadmap tomorrow. And if you want to see what a practice growth roadmap is for one of our clients that we may be onboarding, go to bit.ly/SB20Ash and register. You can also go to our website and you can register to get information for it. But if you use this link, it'll take you right there directly. We're going to go through a whole roadmap and show you guys everything we're doing if you're not a client yet. Again, I'm not going to get into all the details here tonight because there's way too much to talk about. But the ability to level up your team now, get the critical pieces in place to be prepared for this reopening in this slingshot is going to be critical to closing the gap and maximizing your profit this year. And time is of the essence. When this thing reopens, it's going to be game on. So if you are not a client yet, you want to go see this, jump out to this URL. I'll send it to you. Actually, here, what I'll do is I'll just copy this and I'll drop it here into the chat box. It's in the chat. Oh, I guess I got to put http://www. There we go. There's the link right there. You can click on that and you can go register for that. I just put it in the chat box. Now, what you're going to see for the practices that don't prepare, I love Warren Buffett's quote. When the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked. When this economy opens back up in a few weeks, the tide is going to go out, and everybody that is unprepared for the new economy, just like I talked about early on, this is going to be as big of a shift in the world as 9/11 was. We're never going to go back to a pre-9/11 society and safety, security, all that stuff. And we're also never going to go back to a pre-coronavirus environment. This is going to change how business operates, how doctors and fundamentally how everything works in the world. And when this reopens, we're going to see who's prepared and who's not prepared. While the scale and scope of this financial crisis might be greater than the previous financial tsunamis, this one thing remains true. The owners and the management teams who were thoughtful and prudent with running their practices prior to these events have a significant advantage to those who ignored the rules of financial gravity. That's what Keith Cunningham says about this. The exact same thing is true right now. Those owners and management teams who are thoughtful with reopening their practices prior to reopening are going to have a significant first mover advantage against those that are not. To use another Keith Cunningham quote, championship teams have world-class defenses. The offense is going to score the points, but defense wins the games, right? I'll give you guys a little sneak peek. Next week, what I'm going to talk about. Next week, this thing's not over yet. Don't be getting antsy yet. Next week, I'm going to talk about the greatest discovery in the history of humanity. This is going to be an enlightening moment that is going to be a lesson, a big, big lesson, I think, that we all need to take back into our businesses.